What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of East Coast Avengers, and we have a returning guest.
Special guest.
Yeah. Returning back with us is Jordan Blum from M.O.D.O.K, who just came out on Hulu, and we had him for the beginning of episode 1 for season 3, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So he kicked off this season, and we're glad to have him back, and with a lot to talk about. That is shows come out on Hulu. So thank you, Jordan, for coming out and just being part of this show, just again, and showing your support.
It's good to be back. I mean, I want to thank you guys. You guys have been supporting us, so early with the comic and the show coming out and everything. So it's my pleasure to be back to chat with you guys.
Yeah. Well, we're again excited to have you again. How does it feel now to finally see your show and people, giving reviews and their thoughts on it? How does it feel to finally have it out?
It's good. It's like giving birth, it was a long term, but it's nice to kind of have it out there and see people respond to it. And it seems like people are really digging it. So it's nice to kind of, after working for so long and so hard on it, to see that, people are really responding to the things that excited us about the show.
Yeah, I know I've seen a couple episodes, and Jay Christian's finished it, I believe.
Yeah, I finished
season 1. You're almost done, and then me and Darren are about the same place. Dom, where are you at?
I just finished episode 6 today.
Okay,
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on it so far?
I like it so far.
It's fantastic.
For me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't really like I know it's the same team who did Robot Chicken. So I didn't really like Robot Chicken, but I think now that I watched the show, it was because of the medium. Because I like this show. I just didn't really dig Robot Chicken because it was just kind of like mad. It was just kind of like all over the place. But Robot Chicken, I mean, with M.O.D.O.K, it's like focused on him and his family. And so after a while, after like the first episode, I really just burned through all the episodes. And I had fun with it. And it got to the point where the animation was smooth. Like when they were talking and they move their arms, it's like really smooth. And it's like almost like they're real. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, when Stupid Buddy, showed us a presentation of what they wanted to do, they were very eager to do something that felt different from Robot Chicken. Because Robot Chicken, it's supposed to look like toys. They're using action figures. It's supposed to feel like you are playing with your toys. And, for M.O.D.O.K, they wanted something that was a lot more cinematic and polished and kind of fluid, like you're saying, in the animation. So it was really cool to see them push themselves and what they were capable of and kind of find a look that was right for our show.
Oh yeah. Like even some of the set pieces, like an Asgard, it looked amazing. Like I thought that was that's a lot of work. You know what I mean? So yeah, you could definitely see they put the work into it.
Yeah.
It's insane because like that, the Asgard that you see, is made of like water bottles and flashlights and stuff.
Really?
Like when you see the city in the wide shot, it's incredible what they can do where they just can reuse, everyday things and build them into, sets and scale for these miniatures. So, at first I was like, what do they do? What are they making? Like, oh, that'll be Asgard. And then I came back another day and I was like, oh, that's exactly Asgard.
Yeah.
It looks like they ripped it right out of the movies and the comics. So, props to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I forget too that it's all like sets, like miniature sets. Like you forget that these aren't like live, like
They're not
to scale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I forget that for a moment. I'm like, this is really good work. Like for the stop motion, the animation was great.
That's awesome to hear because that was like so important to us that you forget that you're watching puppets, that you just give yourself to the show. And even I was very conscious. I was like, even with our VFX team, I was driving them crazy. I was like, I don't want to see any of the scenes, I don't want people to be reminded that these things aren't real. So they actually would digitally erase the seams on the arms or on some of the puppets, like the Seagramites and the goblins in Asgard had these jaws that needed to be erased. So we went out of our way to hopefully, create this illusion that these things are real and moving around. So you're not thinking how we made it,
So last time we spoke, we had just finished M.O.D.O.K issue number 1. The comic came out, and now all 4 are out. I believe Dom, Christian, and myself have all read them. Josh and Darren are going to be reading them soon. Did you have any kind of the comic bled into the show or the show bled into the comic? Like, how did that have any kind of like connection, or was there any kind of like, we want this to be connected or stuff like that? Because there are some lines that were on the show that I remember reading in the comics.
Like
and
verbatim.
Yeah, verbatim lines. And I thought that was really cool. So how did that go into play?
Well, when Marvel came to us, it was after we had written the show, and they wanted us to write the comic. And Patton and I, we didn't want to just adapt our show. We had just written 10 episodes of it. We love our version of M.O.D.O.K, but we were really excited to tackle like the 616 comic book version, who's similar but different, and like our show doesn't make sense in his world. And that kind of led us to the story, which is like, well, what if he suddenly had memories of a version of our show, and like how much that would drive M.O.D.O.K insane, and think that someone's tampered with him and someone's messing with his mind, and send him on this adventure to kind of solve this mystery. So we like the idea of like kind of connecting them almost metatextually, and having M.O.D.O.K have to reconcile these two different versions of himself. And I think we found an interesting way to work that some of the stuff from the show into the comics without just saying like, oh, it's always been here, it's always existed, they're different versions of the characters from the show. But I think we found a cool organic way to let them live in the Marvel Comics universe.
Oh yeah, I was just talking to JT right before we were started recording that, like, my favorite moment was in like issue 2 where Iron Man and M.O.D.O.K teamed up, and they were at that expo with all the villains, and they found out, oh, that's M.O.D.O.K and that's Tony Stark, and they surrounded them, and then M.O.D.O.K went like from plan A to plan Z, and by Z it was like 98% survival rate. And it was so cool just seeing Iron Man and M.O.D.O.K team up. And honestly, I wish we could see something like that live action, because like it would be so cool seeing a M.O.D.O.K live action with buzzsaws, lasers, and all that. Because I know the show, he's like a father and all that. It's really funny. But in that scene, he looked like menacing. Like he was just, especially that bathroom scene where he just kind of killed all those villains. I was like, Jesus, man, I forgot M.O.D.O.K is
he's a killer.
Yeah, he's a killer. Yeah, he's designed for
it's
killing.
in his name. He's a mental organism designed only for killing. Don't forget that.
Right.
I think M.O.D.O.K kills a decent amount of people or maims them or murders on our show. But yeah, that was something we wanted to do in the comics for sure. It's a more serious version of the character, a little more like the Avengers video game or something. And we wanted to kind of show every facet of the character in the comics. As our show is obviously, it's a comedy, so we're going to lean into the comedy, but in the comics we want to show like he can be funny, but he's also a legit threat, and you don't want to mess with him, and he's brilliant sometimes, and then other times his own ego kind of brings him down. And we wanted to just kind of showcase all of those things that kind of make up the character in the comics. So it was so fun to pair him with Tony and write this buddy comedy issue, and that idea for like a supervillain weapons expo, that was something we had talked about briefly for the show. So it was fun to take a story we didn't get to in the show and then make it into a kind of more of an action fast-paced story for the comics.
Well, regarding a potential season 2, obviously listening to Christian, we know that season 1 ended with 2 cliffhangers.
I think
definitely one cliffhanger.
There's definitely one,
right,
and then there's like the other one.
So is there anything you can tell us about maybe a season 2 that you want to incorporate in that season that hasn't come out yet, that you haven't been able to do in season 1? Like, is there anything you want to build on or add to that you weren't able to do in season 1?
Well, we're gonna, without spoiling it, we're gonna see what it's like when you think you get what you want, and I think that's an interesting thing to give M.O.D.O.K. I don't want to spoil it for the guys that haven't seen it yet, but so it's very much a heavy is the head that wears the crown kind of story. And we have ideas of where we want to go with that future. And, there are big plans for Hexus. We're not just dropping that storyline. And I think we have some ideas of some real fun ways to kind of pick that back up. There's a lot of characters that we kind of set up that we want to come back to. Monica's daughter is a superhero in the comics. And I think that's a really interesting thing. If you're an evil supervillain, to have a daughter who becomes a hero. So that's something we kind of possibly talked about. And then, some smaller character things. Melissa is bisexual, but her love life and those kinds of things we never really got into in the show, just because the show was so much more focused on people's relationships and kind of how they orbit M.O.D.O.K, as opposed to really being able to just go explore Lou or go explore, Melissa on their own. So that's something we want to give Melissa a girlfriend. We're able to tackle a little bit of that in the comic, but really expand on that and kind of, figure out, who could possibly date Melissa and handle M.O.D.O.K, some conversations we've had. So yeah, there's a lot of ideas that, you only get 10 episodes and you have a million things you want to do these characters. And a lot of them we have kind of lined up for season 2, but also really picking up the big, cliffhangers and plot threads and what we want to put M.O.D.O.K through in season 2.
Okay. Going back to the comics, when you were first writing this out, we see that Tony Stark and Gwenpool kind of serve like a big supporting role in issues 2 and 3. When you were writing this out, did you already establish that Tony and Gwenpool were going to be, in this storyline, or was it kind of just random saying like, oh, I'll probably want the Tony in this one, then put Gwenpool in this one? So was it already established in your mind, or was it kind of like a random saying like, we'll just probably like, incorporate them in there?
Well, we knew we wanted to do in the comic basically a story of M.O.D.O.K in trying to find answers about these memories in this life. He would go through his own actual comic book history. So we looked at all the big characters that have kind of, been a part of M.O.D.O.K's life. And obviously like Tony to me is his arch nemesis, or at least in M.O.D.O.K's head, So we had to use Tony, and we used Tony in the show, so we wanted to use, incorporate him here. Gwenpool, M.O.D.O.K had the more kind of comedic stuff in the Marvel comics was done with Gwenpool, and she killed him. A lot of people have killed him. M.O.D.O.K died more times than Jean Grey, so that, like the Serpent Society, we tackled them too. But yeah, Gwenpool was something we always wanted to work in, and also because of Gwenpool's powers, where she's self-aware, she's in a comic. It's a really cool way to examine M.O.D.O.K from that perspective we're talking about, of like his history and who he is and how he sees himself and how the audience sees him. So we were excited to use her. Gwenpool was a character that we had talked about using in the show, and it didn't work for the ending. Originally, I think if we had a different ending planned than the one we went through, and she was originally someone we talked about possibly showing up at the end of episode 9, where he starts this new aim, and she comes kind of looking for a job. But it didn't make sense to introduce her with then what we do in the next episode, in episode 10. So, she's a character we'd love to play with. I don't know, it was something we never really talked to Marvel too much about. So I'd have to look into if we can use her. But I'm a huge Gwenpool fan. Obviously, I loved writing her in the comics. So if we can get our hands on her, if we get a season 2, she'd be in the show for sure.
When I was reading the 3rd issue, when she was kind of like, you flip the page and it was like, oh, am I at this big reveal? And it was like, I love the 4th wall break that she has. And just like the whole comedy that she has with M.O.D.O.K, and like when she does, spoiler, sorry. But when she does kill him, she's like, oh, well,
like the memories.
She starts having these memories, and then it's like, well, the reader, y'all can go back and just delete it. Like you can just cut it out. And I was like, can you really? And I went back, and you can actually cut the actual page out of the comic. And I was like, that is genius. Like that is
actually, I have a question going on for that, where Gwenpool is like talking to the reader, and she's like, far better writers have handled me better than the ones who wrote this one. Like, who wrote that? Was that you? Was that awesome?
Of course we did. Yeah. I mean, if you look at her history, she's had 2 series, right?
Yeah.
Both of them are incredible by 2 writers who are far better than Pat and I. So we were like, we should have her acknowledge that. Also, we were kind of trying to protect ourselves a little bit, because the Gwenpool fan base is intense and very protective. So we were like, look, we know she's you. We're not even claiming that we're like the best people to ever handle her. We're trying our best, please. And they actually were really happy, I think, with how we used her. But they were, the first time I think the solicits popped up, and you could see the cover for issue 3. We started getting these tweets, at us that were like, "What are your intentions with Gwenpool? Don't fuck this up," And we're like, "Oh, just we did our best. Yeah, just read it first." And then they're like, you did pretty good. Thank you." So
be my next question. Like when you were writing out Gwenpool and Tony Stark, did you like contact like previous writers? You can try to keep like that same characterization from like either a previous run or current run that's going on with those certain characters right now.
Or are you just kind of going off of the source material?
Yeah. Well, we read, I read all of Gwen's stuff. I'd read it originally anyway because I'm a fan of the character. But I reread that, and then Iron Man. I've lived my whole life with Iron Man. I've been reading Iron Man since I was a kid, and I've watched all the movies, cartoons, everything, and I still read it regularly. And I know Chris Cantwell just as like a Twitter friend, and I DM'd him just to kind of see what was going on in the book, and even more so when M.O.D.O.K last appeared in his Doctor Doom comic, where I think Doctor Doom stabs him. And so I was like, hey, this comic we're doing is about like recognizing all the different M.O.D.O.Ks and his history. So I'm going to put that panel in the first issue in one of his memories, because I don't want to pretend like that never happened, and it makes sense for the story we're talking about, where like he's been betrayed by literally everyone he's ever worked with. So having Doom stab him is perfect for our story. So he was, very, very grateful, in that like that doesn't happen as much as you think it would, that writers go, hey, I'm going to do this. Is this okay? Does this work with what you're doing? Like usually it's kind of more the job of the editor. But, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't stepping on any future plans that Chris had with M.O.D.O.K or Iron Man stuff. And we got like the new design in for Iron Man's costume, because that Iron Man book was launching while we were starting M.O.D.O.K. So we made sure that our Iron Man looked like the one that was being published now.
Okay. Darren, you have a question?
Good stuff. Yeah, I was just curious. I haven't finished the series. I'm on like half of episode 2, but I mean, like once I finish it, I'll probably know what your answer is going to be based off this question. But I was just curious what your favorite episode was to write and to also see like finished and polished, once it got released. If you have a favorite.
Well, yeah, I think 2 is one I really enjoy, just because it's got that mixture, I think, of what makes the show so fun, where you have him robbing S.H.I.E.L.D. and time travel, but it's also to just go back and see a Third Eye Blind concert. And I think that's kind of, to me, the formula of the show is like crazy Marvel, and then kind of like weirdly grounded, specific relationship stuff. So I like that one, but I think to me, my favorite is probably episode 8, which is the Murder World one, with Arcade. And it's kind of all the family stories, and building to that. And it's like a family therapy set, in a big arena where they all have to murder each other. And I think that was like, to me, just such a fun thing to be able to tackle with our tone for the show.
That was like a saw trap, because I thought it was like the one family the whole time, and then they showed the 3 of them, and I was like, what? So at one point there was like 12 people in there, 3 of each, and I was like, this is insane. And they ended up having 2 Lou's like at the end, which is, I thought, hilarious. Like who does Lou love more than himself? And so like seeing 2 of them at the bar mitzvah episode 10, I thought it was hilarious. Like that's perfect. Like
Thanks.
yeah, he's just kind of vibing with himself, which is like, I could totally see that happening. So they just kept the 2 Lou's, not knowing which one's the real one, but they're okay with it. Which is, I was gonna say too, like comment on when you said it was like episode 2 was grounded because of the Third Eye Blind. I think the whole season's grounded. I mean, it ended with Lou's bar mitzvah and Jody and M.O.D.O.K trying to like work things out, even though there was like the craziness with the younger M.O.D.O.K and Hexus and well, the ending of episode 10, like even though there's crazy stuff going on, I think the whole series was pretty grounded, which made me like honestly like M.O.D.O.K more than I previously had before.
That's awesome. I mean, that was always the hope was, that you care. Like you can't just ride through the season on laughs and gags, and it's like you got to invest in these characters and kind of root for them in a way, which is a lot to ask for a floating murder head who's a super villain. But if we can humanize him and put him in a position where you kind of at least understand him and what he wants and what he's going through and relate to him and care, then we've done our job. So that was, to us, the thing we really were protective of throughout the season, was really making sure we were telling this one long story that services that.
When you're making the comic and then you're making the show, are there any differences in the approach that you would make a comic versus the show? How would you tackle, like the difference between those both mediums?
Like the writing.
Yeah, like is there like a difference?
Oh yeah, big time. When you're making a television show, the showrunners and the writers, it's a writer's medium, so you're really kind of driving, and you're overseeing everything from the writing to the performances to the animation, editing, scoring, all that stuff. Comics is an artist medium, and like I think your job as a writer is to kind of take your ego out of it and instead go like, what are the coolest things that I can kind of ask this artist to do and make them look good and showcase them, and they're the ones who are going to be doing the acting and directing. I just have to kind of come up with like a really cool story that's going to allow them to just explode on the page and be amazing. So I loved that collaborative nature where we would talk to Scott Hepburn, our artist, and be like, well, what do you want to draw? What is exciting? What how do you see this? Like, to me, a comic script is like a suggestion, whereas like when you're doing a TV thing, it's like this is it. We've locked this. This is the thing we're shooting. It's going to sound and look like this. And so it was just a very different way to approach things. And I loved it. I honestly, writing comics is one of the like greatest joys I've ever had in my life. I would love to do more, and it was just so fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you mentioned like that comics is an artist medium, in issue 4, where M.O.D.O.K pulled up on his dad, and his dad was just giving this whole lecture about like, you were meant for more, and he put him through all this pain. And then M.O.D.O.K just kind of exploded, and he was like, I was your son, or I'm your son. And there was like it was like a full page art of the laser, like the layers of it. Mm-hmm. Like that, you mentioned that artist medium, that popped in my head, because when I read that, I was like, oh shit. Like I felt like, I know it's a comic, but like I felt like how mad he was when he was hearing his dad say all these things. I was like, damn. And it is great when you get that feeling from just reading words and letters, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think TV writers probably tend to overwrite comics because we're used to writing dialogue and back and forth and this and that. And it's like, I think the more I wrote comics, the more I started to pare down the dialogue and really like, how do I tell this through images and what's going to convey this, and and how can I kind of communicate this to Scott so that he draws it in a way that feels right and tells the story. And I think that's so fun. It's such a great thing. And so like, yeah, you could tell as each issue went on, there'd be more and more splash pages. And I think in the 4th issue, there's like 6. Yeah. We just wanted these full pages, or like, there's that 2-page spread he does where it's like M.O.D.O.K's origin through his head, and you're seeing all the
I think that was probably one of my favorite pages of the whole comic storyline. So he did a really great job on that.
Oh, he's incredible. Mine too. Yeah.
I would say the craziest moment is when he made his phone case out of like raw new. What was it? New?
Uru metal. Yeah. Thor hammer.
Same stuff that Thor's hammers made. So it was like zipping through all the agents, like
Yondu's
whistle, like whistle arrow. Yeah. It was so cool because like when he was like, because M.O.D.O.K, you thought he's about to lose. They have him strapped up. He's gonna basically die, and he's like, I'm not gonna give up. He like, and they're like, why does a murdering head have like a phone? Why does he have that? And like he just sticks his hand out, boom, 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 boom. He just kills all of them. Like Jesus Christ, like that was awesome. That was like I think half a page, but still, I got the effect. Like I got what you were going for, what you guys were going for in that like sequence. That was awesome.
Yeah, we just want to let Scott loose. Like I remember seeing that in the 1st issue. He has that one where M.O.D.O.K's just tearing through all the AIM agents and slicing them and lasering them, and you're like, oh, Scott is so good at this kind of like insane gore, but like, let's just keep creating these, scenes for him. And that was one we thought of. We're like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if like, M.O.D.O.K, they take all of M.O.D.O.K's weapons away, but everything on him is weaponized, including his phone case. So he just lights up the room and takes everyone out with it.
So,
Awesome.
So my question is okay, after I got done reading the comic and then I started watching the show, I reread the comic and I cannot get Patton's face or voice out of my head when I read this. Do you get the same feeling? Like, I'm sure you've had people say that, right? Like,
100%. I mean, he's M.O.D.O.K, in everything now for me, because even when we were writing the comic, he was pitching lines, and it was like, oh, good, M.O.D.O.K saying it. That's how M.O.D.O.K would say that. Great, we'll just write that in.
right.
It's incredible. I would, I don't know anything about what's going on with the movies or MCU stuff. They don't tell me anything because I could barely keep secrets about my own show, let alone what's happening in, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I would hope that if they bring M.O.D.O.K into the MCU, which I would love to see, that they consider Patton to play it, because I think he's going to become synonymous with the character.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. That's like the perfect fan cast. I think a lot of people would love to see that.
Actually, that's a good segue. Patton off of M.O.D.O.K, like the cast of this show is amazing. Like,
oh yeah,
you got like Whoopi Goldberg, you got John Hamm as Iron Man, you got Ben Schwartz as Lou, you got Melissa Fumero as his daughter Melissa, Amy Garcia as Jody. Like, have you got a chance to meet with these guys, or was it kind of like, because of COVID and all that, you didn't get to like meet them? Like, you just wrote them the lines and then they came in at a separate time and like read them?
No, we recorded everything before COVID. So, we were in the middle of production as far as animation goes when COVID hit. So no, I got to direct all of them, and it was unreal. Wow. Some of them I had relationships with before, like, Ben, I had worked with a ton. So I was able to really have fun with him, and he was improvising, and him and Patton would record together, which was amazing. Amy and I, and Melissa and I became, really close on this, and it was so fun to just really see them pour themselves into the characters and bring them to life and make them their own. And the same with John Daly as the Adaptoid, or Beck Bennett, or Wendy, Sam Richardson. They really just made them their own. And then a lot of times we would even rewrite the scripts to kind of play to their strengths and stuff. So like, I think the Adaptoid wasn't as big of a part in episode 4, but after we had recorded with John Daly, we're like, this is magic. We need more John Daly Adaptoid stuff. So we wrote that whole scene where he becomes the van, and he's doing that whole thing with the radio, where he's doing a whole radio show by himself. And we're like, we just wanted to give, John a showcase there. And then, the guest stars too. Like, I'm a huge fan of people like Whoopi Goldberg and Bill Hader. And then, with John Hamm, we talked about Mad Men so much in the writers' room. We didn't reference other comedies. We like really talked about Mad Men. There's even in episode 5, M.O.D.O.K gives this whole speech that's kind of reminiscent of the carousel speech that Don Draper gives in Mad Men. So it was so weird to have him delivering that in the same episode where he then goes and talks to John Hamm at the end as Iron Man. It was unbelievable, and like people like that, really just want to play and have fun. And John is so funny. Everyone knows him as this very, kind of dramatic actor, but you see him in stuff like Bridesmaids and things, and he's hilarious, and he's so game. And we were just so lucky to have these people. Like even Whoopi Goldberg was like, no one ever asked me to do these things. This is a blast. So you just got to ask. You'd be surprised. He said, there were no second choices on the show. We got everyone we wanted for every role.
That's awesome. Because
I was going to say that John Hamm is probably like perfect as the Adaptoid, because the Adaptoid. I'm sorry, John Daly. Excuse me about that, but the Adaptoid is probably my favorite character on this entire show.
That's awesome.
Episode 6. I'm only 6 episodes in, but the Adaptoid is really thrown into as my favorite character on the show.
Yeah, every line is like sassy. Like it's so funny, because even the first episode he was ripping into Jody. He was like, "Did Ross dress for less?" Just like call me a blazer. I'm like,
No, I think it was the back and forth that he has with the kids when they were trying to say like, I can have this or I can have that, but who's gonna take the Adaptoid with them?
and I was like, what? Yeah, like why is the toaster talking?
Right.
Yeah, he got super pissed. Like, yeah, he was hilarious in the show.
I love how he is an Adaptoid, and we know, like, as fans and of that kind of realm, like he can do anything.
Yeah.
But they use him as like a ladder,
A
a
blender.
blender, a TV, a van. Like it's so funny to me how they just use him as random things.
Yeah.
No, I my favorite character is Lou. I love he just, I don't know, something about the way that he is about himself is just
very like
funny.
He's very like showman,
Yeah.
He's got that like
presentational.
Yeah.
I think episode 6, I think that was probably like Lou's defining moment. Like I haven't watched the rest of the series, of course, but I think just watching episode 6 and then Lou being showcased, in the movie, that was kind of like he was the star of that episode instead of M.O.D.O.K, doing his little magic show in Asgard and whatnot, which I thought was very clever and very fun, which especially for Ben Schwartz recording as Lou. So I just thought, that was a great showcase for Lou in that episode.
Yeah.
Well, we love Ben so much that we added a second Lou just so we could have more Ben. So
and he's like,
you'll see. Like, if you like Lou, there's a lot more Lou in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and like I'm sure he has lines where he's like, this is dialogue, and then he goes dialogue because it's just two Lou's where he just kind of, that's hilarious because like I don't know if you saw Sonic, but like I love Sonic, like the Hedgehog. And it's one of the few times where I said like a video game movie is good, like right after Silent Hill, like a video game movie is like actually good. And Sonic 2 is announced, so it's like, and I love them as John Ralphio in Parks and Rec. So it's like every time I see Vince Schwartz, he makes me laugh because he's just like a funny dude.
Yeah, well, he is funny. My kid was a huge fan of Sonic. I thought the movie was really great, but my kid was obsessed with it when it came out. He watched it every day. So Ben left a voicemail for him that was like, "Hey, Sawyer, it's Sonic." But of course, it being Ben, he took pot shots at me. He's like, "Anyway, say hi to your dad. He's pretty cool." Well, not really. Anyway, talk to you later. He's like, "Sonic thinks you're a loser," and I was like,
And speaking of that, have your kids been able to watch the show, or is it a little too mature for them, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, originally I wasn't gonna let him, but COVID, they were kind of coming in when I was working, and at this point, my 7-year-old has seen it all, and I'm just a terrible father. I interrupted him, but he's like, "Why does M.O.D.O.K have to curse so much?" He's always calling me out on it. So he got very invested in the show.
What were some of the emotions kind of leading towards the premiere or the release of the show? Was it like more nervousness or excitement or a little bit of both?
I mean, definitely nervous because you kind of work in a vacuum. You have no idea how people are going to respond to it. And then we started getting the reviews and they were super positive, and it felt unreal that like, not only were they positive, but they were like kind of picking up on the things that we were hoping people would, the kind of, seeing your intentions realized. So it was a huge relief when, I think for a few days, we were like 100% fresh, and that became kind of the conversation around it. And I hate putting like, that much of significance on a Rotten Tomatoes score, but it's nice to kind of, other people do and look at that. And, we kind of were able to kind of keep a really good, positive kind of discussion around the show and then hearing people respond to it and seeing on Twitter and, this is my favorite character. That's my favorite, I love this line. Like, it's just cool to see these little moments that you actually, you really spend a lot of time on, and you're like, I hope someone digs this, and then to see that happen, it's a cool feeling, but it's nice to share it.
Yeah, so the one thing that I remember before I guess it was like the day before it aired, was people getting press release and watching it, and they literally just gave the biggest and highest praise about the show, and that got me like super excited to watch it. And then immediately when it came out, I binged all the way up until like where I'm at now, basically. And then I got busy with work and stuff. But I mean, it is one of those shows, that you can binge so easy. I mean, it's so funny. Just the way that y'all, put this character out there. And yes, he's a killing machine, like we said, it's in his name, but he can be so funny in the way that y'all, write him and the characters around him. It's a great, like, amazing show. And I'm really glad that it actually got to come out, and I'm hoping for a season 2.
Oh, yeah.
So if anybody's watching this on stream, and haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Like that, It's just,
that's the key to a season 2. We just need people, enough people watch it, and they'll pick us up for more. So we're, it's one of those things we're waiting to see, but just gauging from people's responses, I know people are liking it, so we'd love to do more.
Absolutely.
We will for sure be campaigning for season 2.
Oh.
Literally.
I appreciate it.
Actually, I was gonna bring this up a little off topic now that they're talking about season 2, because another show got renewed for season 2 and 3, and it's come out since the last time we talked to you. I was gonna ask if you picked up on watching Invincible, because that's a huge show, and I was wondering from your perspective as a writer for a show and a comic, how did that show impress you? Did you love it? Did you oh yeah, it was good, I would do some things different, because everyone's talking about it, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. Now it's like everyone's #1 show at the moment.
I think it's awesome. Like I think I only have 2 or 3 left. I've been working my way through it, and all I ever want is to see kind of comics, they're my first love, come alive. And I think they really captured the look and the feel and the violence. Like Invincible is one of the most violent comics ever. And the voice cast is incredible, and it's really neat to see it's almost an hour long. It's 45-minute episodes, something like that.
Give or take.
A drama, just a straight drama, done that way. That's just putting the comic really on the screen. So yeah, I'm enjoying the hell out of it, and I think they did such a fantastic job with it. And I love that we're here at this place where you can just take a comic and turn it into a show, and people see what we've always known, which is this is the best. This stuff is great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it, and I'll definitely be finishing it, and then looking forward to the next few seasons.
Okay, and did you get a chance to see like Captain America Winter Soldier? Because that ended a few weeks ago.
Oh, Falcon Winter Soldier.
Well,
you're technically right.
Yeah,
you're technically
right. But
yeah, he is Captain America now. That was awesome. It was so cool to see, that arc for Sam. I love him, and I loved the supporting characters in it too. Zemo and I thought US Agent were really interesting characters to put into that show, because they kind of live in a gray area, and they really, I think, gave the show its own identity, and it was a ton of fun. I can't wait for Loki. We're in this amazing period where every week there's something new. You're oh yes, great. I don't have to wait for something else. I can dive in. We're that little kind of appetizer, I think, between these 2 giant MCU shows. So it's hopefully you can snack on us while you're waiting for Loki to come. We're an easy 5 hours you could binge us, and then you'll get these week-to-week ones coming up.
That's what I really liked about the show too. Don't get me wrong, I love the anticipation of waiting every Friday after Friday after Friday. But with M.O.D.O.K, I enjoyed episode 1 so much, I was I've got to watch episode 2, and I was able to. And I'm most likely going to rewatch the entire season over again. So,
that's awesome.
I mean, it's a great show. I can't give enough praise about it. But do y'all have any other last questions or?
No,
I mean,
I've been showing it as much as I could. I've shown it to my coworker at work, and we watch it whenever we're closing, whenever we're counting money and all that. And we're on between us, we're on episode 3. I'm done, so I'm just kind of watching for his reaction. And he's really enjoying it, and he's probably gonna show it to his family. So I'm slowly but surely spreading the word as much as I can.
We appreciate that support, man. It means
I'll make sure I'll campaign on my Twitter for season 2 and and tell all my friends about who are big comic book fans. So I'm pretty sure they'll appreciate this show as much as we do right now. So And congratulations again
Yes.
on
Wow, thank you.
the comic storyline. I know this is all big for you, so congratulations again on that, Jordan.
Yeah, in the future.
Thanks so much, guys. And again, thank you for supporting us so early out of the gate, and then let me come on and talk more about it now. So honestly, it's really nice to have you guys in our corner.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Always.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to be back for a stream. Just hang on tight. We'll only take a couple minutes, and we will see you in just a little bit.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Great.
So fun.
It's always a pleasure having you. Hopefully in the future we'll have another reason to have you. Whenever you have some free time, because honestly, you're like you're one of my favorite guys. I don't know about these guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, thank you, guys. Yeah, this was so awesome, and yeah, anytime, just let me know.
All right.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.